Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this updated version of Modern Desktop Computer Hardware Standards. The recording date for this one is in the 2022-2023 school year, as opposed to my last version of this. So the standards have, of course, changed. Now, as you can see here, we're looking at the idea of what to look for when buying a desktop PC in today's market. Now, understand that we're not talking about laptops or all-in-one computers, okay? We're talking about desktop computers. However, in terms of the project that you'll be assigned, or have been assigned, depending on when you're watching this video, these standards should be applied to the product you purchase. And here's one of the reasons why. The components found in your typical desktop computer, okay, the ones that you have here in the business lab, in my business lab, right, are different or might be different than an all-in-one computer or a laptop computer or Chromebook, okay? And the reason that is one, a Chromebook uses the internet as its processing power, okay? Primary processing power. There's still a CPU in there, but all the big stuff that's handled is done on the internet servers, and it's limited by your internet connection, right? Laptops might use cell phone hardware and old, outdated cell phone hardware, and the same thing with laptops. Laptops might use that, and all-in-one systems might use laptop or even old cell phone technology, okay? So although they work and they might have like Windows 11 on there or Windows 10, they're limited. So when we're looking at this, we're looking within the scope of modern desktop computing, okay? What you can go out to Best Buy and get from the store, or Amazon or Dell or HP, you get the idea, all right? So let's go over some key ideas here. All right, so we got this area divided up into three different sections, all right? You got the CPU, the system RAM, and the file storage. In other words, we compared the CPU to the worker. It is not the brain. A brain thinks for itself. A worker does what it's told. CPUs do not think for themselves, or else they would be artificial intelligence. And they're complex algorithm units, but they're not making their own decisions in the sense of making decisions without being told what to do within a set series of circumstances, okay? You also have our desk space. We compared system memory to the amount of space that the worker can use to put things to the side. Remember, we said that the amount of the bigger the desk, the more you can do at one time, or more things can be done while the worker is doing its thing, right? The smaller the desk space, then you have to you have some limits there, right? And then, of course, the hard disk drive, solid state drive, is where the information is stored, okay? And we talked about those things in the unit previously. So we're not going into what they do. We're just going over what to look for and what the differences are. So let's take a look at this first column here, okay? So for the CPU, okay, modern desktop computers should come with a 9th to 12th generation central processing unit or higher, okay? Right now, it's 12th generation because the i7s and the i3s and the i5s, we are currently in the 12th generation, or the 12th year of production of those things. And of course, with every new year, they get upgrades to them, right? I'll give you an example. The first generation i7 processors only had maybe a dual core or quad core processor, right? Now, a 12th generation i7 processor has like 8 to 10 or 12 cores in there, right? Remember, each core is its own lane of traffic, okay? We're not talking about hyper-threading for our big gamers out there. That's not the scope of today, okay? But basically what you'll get is this, right? Ninth generation means it's the ninth generation in. 12th generation means it's the 12th generation in, right? Which means it's the newer processor, okay? So 12th generation is like designed within the last year and released, right? And then ninth generation was, well, of course, 3 years back, okay? Now, of course, you can get those in i5, i7, or i9. I would say that anything less than that is not going to fit the grounds of the project that we are aiming for, because if somebody were to get, say, an i3 in modern processing, they might be really happy with it, unless they are doing the simplest of things, browsing the internet, maybe doing a small time word processing application, using Microsoft Office, that kind of thing. Anything more than that, they ain't going to be happy, right? So you want to aim for i5, right? Now, the 10th generation i3 has 4 cores on it, right? The i5 has 6, okay? Some of them even have 8, okay? And so the i3 has up to 4 cores, and then if you get a 12th generation i9, which are really limited to those super powerful PCs, personal computers, not servers, but PCs, okay, desktop computers, okay, you'll have up to 16 cores. That's not 8 with hyperthread. That is 16 lanes of individual traffic, which might be hyperthreaded. Hyperthreaded means they can change lanes, okay? So there you go. All right, so again, you want to aim for i5 to i9. If you're into a gaming or a high-end PC, you're looking for an i9. That's if you're going with the brand Intel. Now, if you were not going with Intel and you wanted to go with somebody else other than Intel, Intel's a great computer. You can also, or computer processor, right? You can go with AMD. AMD is the manufacturer. Intel's the manufacturer, right? Now, AMD has several different lines. You got the Ryzen 5, 7, or 9, right? The modern Ryzen 5 has up to 6 cores, just like an i5 processor from Intel, right? So it's like Ford and Chevy. They all make the same kind of vehicles, but they're kind of competitive. Now, when it comes to the amount of system RAM that you have, or that desk space the worker is dealing with, right? 6 gigabytes should be sufficient. That doesn't matter if you're running Intel or if you're running AMD. 6 gigabytes is adequate for most users. Again, that's most users. However, you want to aim for 8 to 16 for those who need a little bit more power. But if you're really looking at getting a lot of video editing done, or if you're doing something that's in high processing, right, like games and such, you want to aim for 32, okay? So 6 is good for the average user, right? 8 to 16 for those who need a little bit more performance. Really, you should be aiming for the 8, right? And then 32 for gamers, and then if you're using high-end processing for high-end videos and what have you. My personal computer at the home, what do I use? I built my computer about 3 years ago, and mine came with an i7 processor. All right, and that was it was a 9th generation i7 processor. I have 8 cores, non-hyperthread, and it's fine for my video editing and what have you that I do. And of course, I have 64 gigabytes of RAM that's available to me. So I could pretty much do anything I want to with my computer at the house, right? And then that doesn't include video card for gamers, but that's not the scope of this lesson, all right? And then finally, as far as storage is concerned, okay, if a computer has a hard disk drive, okay, and that's going to be for your entry level and maybe your mid level, okay, you're going to have about 1 terabyte on there. Some may offer 2, so on and so forth. But ideally, most modern computers are going to have a solid state drive, right, for their operating system. So what they'll do is they'll keep their operating system on the solid state drive, and you can do some basic storage, right? Now, 256 gigs is the minimum, okay? 500 is ideal, or a terabyte is really what you should have on your computer. And that's for your operating system, your programs, so on and so forth, right? And then you do all of your storage on a separate drive. Ideally, if you're running what they call a dual drive system, right, which means that you can kind of keep your operating system on one spot, like your solid state drive, and then do all your storage elsewhere. You can do a combination of solid state drive and hard disk drive. But understand that hard disk drives are really, really slow, okay? So you're only going to keep your hard disk drives not for programs, but maybe basic storage or information, like storing videos, pulling videos as you're working on them, so on and so forth, right? But if you want to use your solid state drive as your basic workspace, okay, because it's much faster than dealing with a hard disk drive. Again, 1 terabyte is the standard for HDDs, and they're super cheap now, right? And then, of course, for solid state drives, entry level is 256, 500 for mid, and then 1 terabyte should be the standard. All right, so there you go. That should cover it. And look, we got done in less than 10 minutes. I hope that helps you out. Now, again, this is just the computer itself. It doesn't include the monitor, so on and so forth, right? So if you're choosing a monitor, why are you going to cheap out on the monitor and get a high-end computer itself, right? So if you're dealing with the guy who wants to do high-end graphics and video editing, go ahead and get them the higher level monitor. Don't get a cheapo VGA only, right? So those are the things that we've talked about in the unit itself. Just a little bit of extra help there. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you on the next episode.